The arrow functions is an alternative syntax to create the functions in JavaScript. So, if the function is created by using the regular function keyword, we can call them as regular functions. And if the function is created by using arrow operator, which is equal to and greater than, we can call it as arrow function. So overall, in JavaScript, we have two ways to create the functions, that is regular functions and arrow functions. In case of arrow functions, first you will provide the parameters list in this parenthesis, and then you will write the arrow operator, which is equal to and greater than. Then you will write your function body, which means that first you will receive a set of parameter values, and these parameter values will be the input for this function body. So in this function body, you can access all these parameter values. So what's the difference between a regular function and arrow function? In case of regular functions, by default, this keyword will access the global empty object. Whenever the regular functions are invoked through the dynamic contexts, asynchronously by using either promise, events, or set timeout or set interval, this keyword may refer to some different object as supplied by these functions. For example, if you invoke the regular functions by using set timeout, this keyword object will be supplied by the set timeout itself. So in that case, this keyword of the regular functions doesn't refer to the global empty object. So that means there is no guarantee that this keyword always refers to global object, because the promise, set timeout, or set interval, all these dynamic contexts may supply another object for this keyword. But in case of arrow functions, this keyword always refers to the parent object. That means always it refers to the global object, which is empty by default. Let us understand the same difference practically. So let us implement all the possibilities of arrow functions in this example. Let's create a new file, that is arrowfunctions.js. First, let us write a simple example. Let's say, for example, there is a function, and in this function I would like to print the value of this. And let's store this function reference in a variable. Let's say, for example, function1 equal to function. So this is a function, and its reference is being stored in this variable called function1. And let's invoke the same here. So by default, this keyword refers to a global object which contains global, clear interval, clear timeout, set interval, set timeout, and some other properties as shown here. So this is a global object that is by default available in all the regular functions as this keyword. But in case, if you try to access this keyword outside the function like this, see, by default it refers to empty global object. So what do you understand from this example? Always, this keyword which is used outside the function refers to an empty global object. But whenever you use this keyword inside the function, it contains a global object that contains some functions such as set timeout, set interval, and some other properties. See, this is the global object that is referenced by this keyword. So, this keyword of regular functions refers to a global object which contains all these properties. This is the default nature of regular functions. But let's try to use the same in case of arrow functions. How to use the arrow functions? It's quite simple. Instead of the function keyword, you try to use the arrow operator, that is equal to and greater than, without space. This is the parenthesis for the parameters list, but in this function we don't have any parameters, so it is just an empty parenthesis. So in order to create an arrow function, you require to write the list of parameters or at least an empty parenthesis. Then you will write an arrow operator, which means that it is an arrow function. And then you will write your function body as usual. So in case of regular function or arrow functions also, the function body remains same. So let's run this. As you can notice that this keyword of the arrow function doesn't change, it always sticks to the global empty object. See, in case of regular function, as you can see once again, see that this keyword refers to a global object which contains all these properties such as clear interval, clear timeout, and all these. So this keyword of regular function changes to global object which contains all these properties. But in case if you convert the same function as arrow function, that this keyword context doesn't change. It always refers to global empty object, so it doesn't contain those properties this time. See, it is just an empty object which is equivalent to this keyword that is present outside the function. See, inside the function it is empty object, as well as outside the function also it is empty global object. So the point of the arrow function is that the object of this keyword might change in case of regular functions, but the object of this keyword of arrow functions doesn't change. That's the difference between regular functions and arrow functions. So when to use which one? In case if you want to make the object of this keyword change automatically, then use the regular function. But you don't want to allow the object of this keyword change automatically, then use the arrow function. Let's make some meaningful scenario. Let's say, for example, we have a student object and it contains some properties such as student name. And I would like to add a method, for example, get student name. In this case, I'm using the regular function as method. So in that case, this keyword of this regular function automatically changes to current object. See, by default, outside the object, this keyword refers to global empty object. But when you use this keyword inside the method of an object, this keyword automatically points to the current object instead of referencing to global empty object. So that is the default nature of the regular function, that this keyword object automatically changes. So let's print this. I am trying to invoke that getStudentName method. As you can see, this keyword refers to the current object inside the method. Now I am trying to convert this regular function into arrow function. Let's see the difference. So remove the function keyword and add the arrow operator without space. Means in between equal to and greater than there is no space. So in the exact same program we are getting empty object. So that's the exact point of the arrow function. The object of this keyword doesn't change in case of arrow function. It sticks to the same global object which was available outside the object. See, as long as the code is outside the object, by default this keyword equal to global empty object, right? The same object is referencing in case of method also, instead of referencing to current object. That's the difference between regular and array functions. But we don't want it, right? Generally, the methods are intended to manipulate any data of the current object. So, it wants to access the current object always inside the methods. So that is the reason using the array functions for the methods is not a good idea. So, make it as a regular function so that it can access the current object, and of course it can access any properties of the current object, such as for example student name. See, we are getting the student name as result, that is Scott. Here the point to understand is that when we use the regular function as a method of an object, that this keyword by default refers to current object. But in case if we are using arrow function as a method of the object, that this keyword doesn't refers to current object, but instead it refers to the global empty object as it was outside the object. That is the difference between regular and arrow functions. But the general expectation is that the methods must access the current object by default. So array functions for the methods is not a good idea. So always try using regular functions as methods of any object. But when you will use array functions exactly, at what cases it is best used? For example, you would like to invoke that method after some time by using setTimeout. So in this case, I would like to call the same method indirectly using setTimeout. So let's set timeout, and then I would like to execute that method. Let's say student.getStudentName, and this method must be executed after 3 seconds, so 3000. So let's check this out and observe carefully. Outside the object, that this keyword refers to global empty object. Okay, ignore it. But focus on this getStudentName method. In case if we call the method directly, by default this keyword refers to the current object, that is the student object in this case. And in case if you call the same method through setTimeout indirectly, then this keyword context changes. It's because the setTimeout is an asynchronous operation which automatically supplies its own object as this keyword for that function. Let's try to print this keyword object. And also let me comment this outside the object. Let's see the actual object that is being referenced by this keyword in both situations. For the first case, we are calling the method directly. So at that point of time, this keyword refers to the current student object. But later, we are invoking the same method by using setTimeout. So it passes a new time-related object as this keyword for that function. So let's check this out. See, for the first case, when we invoke the method directly, this keyword refers to current object, as you can see. But when you invoke the same method indirectly by using setTimeout, since it is an asynchronous operation, that means executes after some time but not immediately, this keyword of that method refers to a timeout object which contains all these details such as timeout, previous, next, and all this information. So in case of setTimeout, we are unable to access that student object. So to overcome this problem, we can use the bind method that we have learned before a moment. So let us say bind and then explicitly supply the student object reference. This is a solution for this problem. So let's run this. Yes, exactly after set timeout also, we are able to access the student object through this keyword. It's because of bind method in case of set timeout. Alright, but when we use these arrow functions, let's say for example, I would like to use the set timeout inside this method instead of outside. So in this case, we are calling the method normally here. So this keyword by default refers to current object. See, as of now, this keyword refers to current object. But whenever we are trying to use the set timeout inside the method, then the scene changes. See, set timeout. Then we are trying to use the function here. Let's say I would like to execute that function after 3000, that is 3000 milliseconds, that is 3 seconds. And in this, I would like to print the value of this. Alright. So first we are calling that getStudentName method directly. So as of now, this keyword refers to current object. And inside which we have another function, and in that function we are printing the value of this keyword, and this function executes after 3 seconds. Let's check this out. So after 3 seconds we can get the output, that is this keyword. So at this point of time also, this keyword refers to timeout object instead of current student object. So here the point to understand is that every time when you supply the regular function to the set timeout, this keyword inside that function always refers to the timeout object, as you can see here. So my requirement is that I don't want to change this keyword context, but I would like to make this keyword stick to current student object. So if we are printing this keyword outside the set timeout, this keyword refers to student object, right? The same student object must be referenced even inside this function also. If that is the case exactly, we will use the arrow function instead of regular function. So in this case, this keyword in this function refers to the student object, but it doesn't change to timeout object, as you can see here. So what I'm trying to say is that if you use the set timeout with regular function, now this keyword refers to timeout object. But in case if you are using arrow function with the set timeout, it always stick to the parent object, that is the student object, as it was here. So let us run this. Check the output carefully. In case of getStudentName function, this keyword refers to student object by default. And in case of regular function with set timeout, this keyword context automatically changes to timeout object, as you can see here. So in this case, you are unable to access the student object. So as you want to access the student object, we are using arrow function. So in case of arrow function, this keyword refers to the student object but not to timeout object. So it is up to you. In case if you want to access the current object, then use the arrow function in case of set timeout. But you really require the same only in case of asynchronous operations such as set timeout, set interval, promise, etc. Of course, promise is a different concept which we are not going to explain right now. So, especially for asynchronous and event-based operations, you require the arrow function to avoid switching the this keyword context. But of course, you should avoid using the arrow functions for the regular object methods. For object methods and constructor functions, it is best to use regular functions only. Of course, we will understand the constructor functions later in this section. So, in the real-world applications, you can use the arrow functions everywhere except for object methods and constructor functions. And moreover, I would like to show another example on arrow functions where arrow function can take the return statement automatically. So let me create another example for the same, that is arrow functions2.js. For example, I would like to create a function that receives two arguments, that is a and b, and it wants to return the corresponding result value. It wants to return a plus b and store the reference of this function in a variable, let's say add. So we can invoke that function like this, like add, and supply the arguments, for example 10 and 3. So of course this function returns 10 plus 3, that is 13. First 10 will be received by a and 3 will be received by b. So a plus b, that is 10 plus 3, it returns 13. So we are printing the same by using console.log. So the result value 13 will come back to the same place where we invoke the function. So this statement will be equivalent to 13. So it will be equivalent of writing console.log of 13. So output will be 13. So we are getting the same output, that is 13. Now let's convert this function as arrow function. It's quite simple. Just remove the function keyword and add the arrow operator after the parameters list. So we are getting the same output because there is no controversy about the this keyword as of now. So whenever you don't require or care about this keyword, it doesn't matter whether you are using regular function or arrow function, both are almost equivalent. But only that this keyword wants to access the current object, that means for object methods, in that case only the regular functions and arrow functions makes the difference. Anyways, now since there is only simple and single expression in this function, you can try the same without even writing return statement. So you can remove the return statement here, just mention the expression, and instead of curly braces, let's try using the parenthesis. That's it. So it will be equivalent of return a plus b. So it takes the return statement automatically here. That is the shortcut provided by JavaScript. So this shortcut is possible only when there is a single statement, that to a single expression, but not a regular statement. So whenever there is a single or simple calculation, then only use this shortcut syntax. But in case of multiple statements or multiple expressions, then you should write the regular body just like you do for regular functions. And moreover, you can write the same in a single line since it is just an expression. Surprisingly, this is a function. These are the parameters for that function, and for this expression, automatically return statement will be taken. So this will be understood as return a plus b. So in this case also, we are getting same output. This kind of shortcut syntax will be extremely helpful while checking the conditions. For example, you want to check some condition, let's say, if the a value is even. We are supplying some input value, for example n, and I would like to check only the condition, that is, n value is even number or not. That means if it is divisible by 2 or not. So in case if you divide by 2 and remainder is 0, then it is even number, otherwise odd number. We are invoking that isEven function and supply the number, for example 7. So this value 7 will go to n, then n mod 2, result will be 1, and 1 double equal to 0, condition is false. So overall, automatically it returns false. So that is why we are getting false in this case. So in the function, whenever you want to check the condition, in that case, this shortcut syntax of array functions is extremely useful. So overall, the summary is that you should not use array functions for object methods and constructor functions, but anywhere and anytime, wherever this keyword is not the matter or this keyword is not the context. That means your function code doesn't depend on this keyword. In that case, you can use either regular functions or array functions. For example, take this example. Here we are not using this keyword, right? So for this kind of functions, either regular functions or array functions, anyone can be used, it doesn't matter. But in these days, most of the developers regularly using the array functions these days because it is a bit convenient and a shorter syntax. And also, whenever there is a single expression that returns a number or string or even Boolean value like checking the condition, in these cases you prefer using array functions because automatically for your expression, return statement will be taken, as you can see here. But if you switch to the objects, here in this case we are creating the method in this object. So for this kind of object methods and constructor functions, we should not use array functions because the intention of the methods is always that this keyword should access the current object, but that is not happening in case of array functions. And moreover, whenever we invoke the function with set timeout, set interval, promise or event handling, in that cases array functions are recommended because you don't want your this keyword context change by that event or by that dynamic context. It should stick to the current object always, as we have practiced here. And of course, this concept was introduced in ECMAScript 6, which is also called as ES 2015. This is all you need to know about array functions in JavaScript.